Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Claim Your Magic podcast with me, Sabrina Scott, your host and creator of this crazy podcast, which now has a lot of episodes. So, on this podcast, as you probably know, I talk about various topics, including life stuff, love and romance, boundaries, healing from various things, including trauma, witchcraft, magic, spirituality, tarot, everything in between. And my purpose behind all of this is to help y'all claim your magic, whether that's a literal or figurative, and completely change and transform your lives for the better. That is my goal, my mission, my desire, and my wish with all of this. So, all right, let's get into it. This is just going to be a short and sweet episode. I just wanted to talk for a few minutes about my new poetry book. So, it's called Rapeseed, and the little addendum thing at the end is poetry and writing about life after rape. And it seems maybe weird to some people that I would release a book of poems about such a heavy and difficult topic now, like 11 years almost to the day, like it's a month away, I guess. That will less than that now. That'll be the 11-year anniversary of my first experience, if we want to put it that way. A lot of people might be like, Sabrina, why are you releasing this now? Aren't you over it? And it's like, yeah, I am over it, actually. And that's the only reason that I can release this book. I actually have performed these poems. I used to do a lot of poetry readings and performances, believe it or not. I know it seems kind of far-fetched if you think about it, but that used to be a big part of my life and my artistic practice and my professional practice. Reading poems and writing in crowded rooms full of people. And sometimes that work was about witchcraft and trauma, and sometimes it was about sexual assault and stuff of that nature, and the feelings of rage and abandonment and disappointment and just misery that I felt after that happened. And I think I probably, I don't know why. It's interesting. Actually, if I'm going to think about it, I do know why. I don't think I could have released these poems back then because I was too fucked up. I was too in it. It was all too recent. The trauma was still too heavy. It all felt too much. And I think that if I had released these poems in book form and gotten any kind of scrutiny, it would have completely destroyed me. And I just don't think I could have done it. And yeah. And I think now, right, okay, so let me give you guys my hypothesis. I think that work about trauma, we can really only write it when we're in that headspace, when it is brand new, when we have just experienced it and it's all incredibly raw and intense and potent. And I think that's when we need to write. I think that's when we need to make art. I think that is when the creative process can really save us. And during the healing process and after most of that healing has been, let's say, achieved, I know it's never really fully done, but I also think it would be incorrect to say that we never make progress on these things, because we do, and I have, and I'm sure many of us have. And I think it's in that process of recovery and healing and kind of moving on, that is when we can edit. That's when we can look at the poems and the writing again and say, okay, what is this? Is this still good? And in some cases to be shocked by, this is actually really good. I thought this must have just been something that I wrote in a heated moment of anger and disappointment and just violation and trauma. And yes, the poems are that, but they're also, I think, pretty good. I don't think I could have in any way written them now. There's no way, because I just don't feel that way anymore. I don't have that charge that I did at the time. But it's really cool in a way to have this writing, this snapshot, this time capsule of what it felt like at the time, because I've made so much progress that I often kind of forget. Like, intellectually, I remember that it sucked. Intellectually, I remember that I was so hurt and I felt so alone and everything was just brutal. Like, of course, I remember that. But the heart of it all, the rage of it all, the rawness of it all, I do lose that now when I think of what I went through. And so I do feel very blessed that I wrote through it and I wrote it out, and I put my experience and my emotions to paper. And I do think that writing and art and creativity and creative expression in all of its forms can really be what helps us heal when we go through traumatic experiences. Even if we never end up showing anyone that writing or that poetry, and maybe we do show it a decade later, like I'm doing, maybe we just burn it, whatever. But I do think this exorcism of our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, all of it onto the page or into some form of art is so important. And I think back to when I was a kid, and my main art form was more around drawing. And the drawings, I've always written though, to be fair, I've always kind of done both. But the drawings that I did when I was like a kid, like 12, 13, 14, 15, are pretty fucked up. There's like all these people with like bleeding everywhere and like cuts and wounds, and it looks so dark and depressing and like very fucking intense. And that, I'm sure, is how I fucking survived that time. I'm actually probably never going to show anyone that stuff. I actually don't even know where it is. I'm sure it's somewhere. Maybe it's not somewhere. But the point is that creative expression, it helped me get it out. Get those emotions, the thoughts, all of that out, so it wasn't fully trapped in my body. Obviously, some of it was, but not all of it. And if you listen to this are going through anything or have been through anything that was or is traumatic or disappointing or upsetting or just very intense for you, I really would encourage you to give it a go, to get creative and write and journal and paint and scribble and whatever art form it is that speaks to you. Even if it is like some wacky interpretive dance in your living room and your cats are looking at you like, what is that person doing? That counts. And that is beautiful. And I think really important. So the book, right? Rapeseed. It's tiny, and I'm not going to get into the title. I think if you can put two and two together, you can probably figure it out. And I do talk a little bit about what that title is about in the introduction. There's two introductions, actually, one written this year and one written in 2016. Because I think I did try to think about making this into a book back then, and I just could not do it. And I'm glad that I waited. I think probably the book would have popped off maybe more if I had done it then, because it was also recent and I was a lot more entrenched in the arts community. But I think emotionally it is best for me to just have done, etc., whatever words. I haven't had my coffee yet, you guys. It's better to release it now, I think, with that distance and with the emotional sobriety and the fortitude and the healing behind me, to know that it is fine and I made it through and it's okay and I did it, So the book of poems is separated into three different parts. The first part is the most intense, violent part, and I don't really outline what happened that much. It's mostly those initial feelings of rage and anger and just intensity. The first collection, the first little chapter, I guess, of poems is about that, as where all those poems live. The second little area of poems is a little bit more mixed. There's still some of that rage, but there's also community disappointment, community happiness. Like there's some cute little happy moments where I feel held and good. And it's very like mixed feelings. And then the last chapter is where I start to talk about magic and witchcraft and ritual. And some of the things that I did, some of the messages that I received, some of the magic that I worked through to get through the experience. And I do believe that magic around healing trauma is a beautiful thing, that if it speaks to you, absolutely it's something that you should try. Obviously, therapy. Obviously, if it speaks to you, medication. I never went on medication. Because I knew for me it was just trauma stuff. It wasn't really anything else, right? And it was a trauma thing that rewired my brain, and so it had to be healing that trauma that rewired it back into something healthy. So that's the book. And only one person I think has finished it so far, at least, that reached out to me and said that it was good and it put a lot of their thoughts and feelings into word, into writing. And so that felt really good to hear and to learn that someone resonated with it. And that is really what I want with this project, is for especially the women who have been through this to feel less alone and to feel like survival and thriving after this experience is possible. And I know that is probably going to be a very basic, banal statement to many people, and that's fine. But when you're in it, it's very hard to kind of see past that. I know it was for me. And the things that really gave me a lot of strength was reading survivor stories. And that gave me a lot of strength and inspiration to be able to share my own writing and to even write back in the day, right? So that's all I'm going to say about it for now. I don't want to make this too long, too intense. But yeah, my new poetry book, Rapeseed, is available on Amazon in all the countries. And yeah, hopefully you, I think enjoy is maybe not the right word. I don't know what would be the right word for a book about poems that is on this topic. Sorry guys, words. I really need my coffee, otherwise I can't speak in the morning. But I hope you guys like the book if you decide to pick it up. There is some witchcraft in there, absolutely. And if you are interested in magic and trauma, I do think it would be a good thing to pick up. And if you are someone who is dealing with healing your trauma and especially experiences of sexual violence, I think it would be a good little book to pick up. It's adorable. It's super tiny. It's honestly, the printing is really gorgeous. I'm very, very happy with how it turned out. So Rapeseed, available on Amazon. And that's all, my friends. My website, of course, sabrinamscott.com, and you can send me an Instagram at Sabrina M. Scott, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Much love. Bye.